What's up, y'all? This is Ryan Ford from Cashmere Agency. We're down in San Diego for Comic-Con 2016. Welcome to the We Are All Heroes panel. First, I'd like to introduce the panel. Jamie Broadnax was with us last year. We're happy that she's here now. Again, she's the founder and she runs blackgirlnerds.com. Also hosts the BGN podcast. Also has been recognized by Shonda Rhimes as being one of the favorite people to follow on Twitter. She was just telling me Ava DuVernay feels the same way. And she also was able to secure an interview with Idris Elba. So give Jamie a round of applause. Next up is a great friend of mine, Chuck Jigsaw Creekmur, founder and continues to run allhiphop.com, and a self-described fanboy and black nerd in and of himself. He's a cultural critic that's been featured in a million different media outlets, from BET to TV1 to MTV and VH1. Give Chuck a round of applause. We got Eric Pumphrey, who started Reckless Tortuga, a YouTube influencer himself. Maybe best recognized for his recent work in HBO's All the Way, the movie about Lyndon B. Johnson and MLK, and definitely has been very successful in the digital space. Give Eric a round of applause. Last but certainly not least, Miguel Gomez. We saw him in Southpaw, the Antoine Fuqua boxing flick, and he's also, of course, on The Strain as Gus. But me being a hip-hop head, we talked about this earlier, I remember him in his former life as a rapper signed to Jay-Z's Rockefeller Familiar named Aztec. Give Miguel a round of applause. All right, so let's jump into it. Got a question right off the bat for you, Miguel. I talked a little bit about these real-world events, these racially charged real-world events. How are we seeing those, or are we seeing those translating themselves into the world of fanboys and fangirl cultures? And if they're doing it, are they doing it the right way?
Right. I can speak for the strain. To me, a lot of the story of the strain is it's a metaphor for what's actually going on out there in the streets, as far as like our show has to deal a lot with vampires and sickness and police brutality this season. We're going to go through some police brutality, but deeper than that, I feel like these vampires and all these zombies and things, I think we face that, right now in the street. Let's not pretend. You can actually walk outside and you have to be conditioned to the point where you could say, I could die today. It's a possibility for me to die today. It's a possibility for me to go to jail today, whether warranted or unwarranted. The less fortunate people in the struggle, we deal with the criminals and all that they send home from jail. They live right there in the neighborhood. The crackheads, the people with mental problems, they live right down the street. We have to deal with that. We could lose our lives at any moment. There's people out there that they don't give a shit about anything else but what they want in that moment. And so for me in the show, when I'm looking at these vampires and I'm looking into the eyes of this evil, we are the ones that deal with that front line every day, walking out the door. It's a real. I don't think people understand when you're in a certain environment, you have to accept the fact that I might not come home tonight, but I gotta go out there and I gotta feed my family. I gotta pay these bills. I got people that look up to me. And so for the show, that was asking what is your character? What makes him different than anybody else? I said he's conditioned for this battle. This is something that's been going on in his life since day one. So, and to have that representation of somebody, they allow him to be a strong person who's actually fighting for something that has integrity, that has honor. I think that's when you guys speak about diversity as far as characters. I said, for me, it's an honor to be able to play somebody who comes from the struggle, being someone who does come from the struggle. And I think that what we need is more diversity, showing people who come from the streets, instead of showing us and depicting us as criminals, as rapists, as murderers, as killers. They need to show who we really are.
Right.
People that have families, that come from struggle, that come from integrity. Some of the people, the most realest people I've ever met have been people that have no reason to be like that, you know. But just I think the hood, the streets bring out character in people. When you find good people, you have to support each other in that way.
Right. We need those heroes in our community, right? Jamie, I know that a big part of the awareness about what you've been doing in your space is about Twitter and live tweeting. But people are live tweeting not only shows like Them Thrones turns into Throne Jaw, right? But also like there's other hashtags going on out there like Black Lives Matter. And you're really in that space, understanding what people are talking about. How do you feel that your people that are interacting with you through Twitter and through your live tweeting phenomenon, how are they taking what they're watching on TV from the fantasy side and then what they're seeing on TV from the news side like CNN?
I mean, it's within the fabric of who we are as Black people and people of color in this space. So talking about Black Lives Matter in the same vein as live tweeting our favorite TV shows just comes naturally for us. It's organic. So I think to dismiss that, to separate it, doesn't feel authentic. I'm not embracing my Blackness. I'm not embracing myself as a woman when I'm dealing with issues of patriarchy and even misogynoir in spaces. So I think it's important to have that balance with the online community of Black girl nerds, as well as being able to enjoy and feel entertained by the various shows that we're watching. So I'm glad that I have a platform where I'm allowed to speak on these issues, and it's not something that I had ever planned. It's just I treat my Black girl nerds account like it's my personal account, and sometimes I don't have much of a filter. But I'm glad that people who are actually following the account are respectful enough to join in the conversation, want to be a part of the conversation, retweet it, and really feel like it's a really great balance.
That's interesting. One of the big things I talked about is we're finally starting to see some of these minority characters come to the big screen and the small screen, right? Black Panther, Luke Cage, Falcon, War Machine, Cyborg. But I was a kid, I read comic books, and I did appreciate the fact that there were Black superheroes, but my favorite superheroes are still Wolverine and Batman and Superman. Chuck, like we're seeing these secondary characters or tertiary characters. Mm-hmm. Do we really even care about them, or are we just happy because they're Black?
No, I think we definitely do care about them. I mean, for me, particularly Luke Cage, that was my man. Like, I love Luke Cage. I think, obviously, those characters that you love, that's a reflection of where the energy was put into promotion, marketing, storylines. Wolverine was in every X-Men. I mean, they even put him in the most recent X-Men movie, and why are you here? You know what I'm saying? Right. Just because it's Wolverine. So, obviously, they are going to, implement into our brains the same thing into the consciousness of the whole country. But I do think it's important that, I didn't love Falcon when I was growing up. I'm like, you're a sidekick dude. Like, I'm not even with you like that. You know what I mean? Right. And if you look at the picture, Captain America's in the middle. Mm-hmm. Falcon is like back here, happy and flying. You know what I mean? Just happy to be flying. and like, it's like, I can't mess with that. You know what I mean? But Luke Cage, and then, and furthermore, if you look at right now where we are in America and how Luke Cage fits, it's so timely, And same with Black Panther, but I think Luke Cage is actually a little more timely because, like Cheo Coker said, imagine a bulletproof Black man in America right now, right here.
More bulletproof Black.
Absolutely. Right. What does that look like? So, for me, I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a good start. Right. And obviously, we have to continue to build outside of the Marvel universe, outside of the DC universe, and and tell our own stories.
Right. I want to take a second to give Murs a warm round of applause for joining.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
For those that don't know, Murs is a hip-hop lyricist, has written his own comic books, grew up as a huge fanboy, and comic book head, and is now super heavy on that Twitch, right? In the gaming world.
All the time.
Yeah. So, Murs, I pose the same question to you. Like, when I was watching recently the 30 for 30 documentaries about O.J. Simpson, I went back and talked to my dad. I'm like, Dad, O.J. had this not so good past, right? Before the murders and all of that, right? You know, he kind of sold the black community out and did this. And my dad was like, I didn't care. That's all we had, right? That's all we had. So, do we really care about these characters, or do we care about them because they're all we have? For instance, like, this is the 1% of Black America that really, really, really cares about these characters. They're going to be here, right, at Comic-Con. But, you know, for the average, you know, Latino, Black, Asian, for the average minority, do we care about these secondary characters?
I just finished this argument. So Black Panther's always been my favorite because it was black, but because of black, I read Solo Nights at 14. I'm a huge fan of the Black Panthers in general. So it's at what cost? Like, I was disappointed when I left the theater and me and my son are playing and he goes, oh, I'm Black Panther, and it goes like this. I was like, Black Panther never had this moment, you know what I'm saying? But because Disney doesn't have the rights to Wolverine and they can't go snick, they try to create and force this thing on Black Panther, and my friend's like, you should just be happy that he's on the screen, and I'm like, I'm happy, but that's not correct. Like, you know, that's not his thing, you know? He's one of the richest men in the world, Wakanda's advanced civilization. The shield, they never make mention of that the shield that Captain America is throwing at him that he put a scratch in is made from the precious metal that is mined in the country that he runs. Like, I was like, my son, I've been waiting to introduce him to Black Panther. We know the Star Wars legacy, we know, he doesn't even know his ABCs, really. He's 3.5, you know, but, you know, he explained to his mother that Leia is Luke's sister. I'm Luke's brother, not his girlfriend, so he knows that. But for a parent that waited so long to introduce his son to his favorite character, I hated that he thought that looking at his manicure was the Black Panther's move. And I was like, that's not right, you know, but I've been berated for the past 4 hours for saying that and told that I shouldn't say that. But then, like, I'm a fanboy, so I know that Ryan Coogler's directing the next one, and it'll be fine.
Right.
You know, he's saying, well, that's what they needed to sink people in, and everybody thinks he's the coolest character. Like, with or without that 2 seconds, he would have been the coolest character. But at no point in the Black Panther's comic history does he go, oh shit, there's Wolverine.
Right.
Like, it doesn't. He scratches a lot, he does, but that's not his thing, you know what I mean? And I was just disappointed. I'm gonna hold it to the same standard, black, white, whatever. As a nerd, I'm disappointed that that's not that's not canon. He doesn't do that.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get to the point where there's a Black Lightning movie. And then, you know,
DC so white, hashtag.
Oh, good.
So, you know, part of the problem, or part of the challenge is that many of these black characters that we're now seeing on the big screen for the first time weren't created by black people, right? And they've been characters that have been around for, some of them 50 years, literally 50 years. So now as they come on the screen, they carry that history with them, right? And there's a lot of cultural nuances that maybe they don't get right. Eric, like, from white creators that created so many of these characters that we now love so much, can we remix those characters to get them right now, sometimes 50 years later?
I don't see why not. I mean, I definitely think they should put attention on, you know, when you are hiring writers, or if they're developing a project, building a writer's room, you definitely want that viewpoint represented in there. But I'm a writer, and I can write a Caucasian character. I can write a Hispanic character. I can write a black character. So I'm not going to say that a Caucasian can't appropriately write an African American, because I think they can. But should opportunity be given to give something that's a little bit more personal of a viewpoint to a writer's room? Sure. I think they should definitely look at that. And I think that characters could benefit from that.
So while we're like challenging Hollywood or you know, comic book franchises to get it right, remix it or tweak it a little bit so it fits in today's world and fits with the cultural nuances, at the same time, they're remixing other characters that were formerly white and making them minorities. You got the Iron Man's now a black girl named Riri, right? You got Dominican Spider-Man, a female Thor, Asian Hulk, homosexual Iceman. They've been talking about for years, even making James Bond like black. Can Idris Elba play James Bond or Cuba Gooding Jr. or whoever, right? But is diversity for diversity's sake, is it all that helpful? I want to read this about George Takei. As you guys may or may not know, in the new Star Trek movie, they're going to reveal that Sulu was gay. Obviously, George Takei is a strong advocate for gay rights. He said, "I'm delighted that there's a gay character. Unfortunately, it's a twisting of Gene's creation, to which he put so much thought. I think it's really unfortunate. I told him, be imaginative and create a character who has a history of being gay, rather than Sulu, who had been straight all of this time, suddenly being revealed as being closeted." Miguel, is it enough to just remix these formerly white characters and make them something that's a little more fitting into today's day and time?
Look, I think if we get a chance in life, we got to make the best of it. If that's what we get right now, then we have to go in there and we have to put our full effort into it and be the best that we can be, so that we can position ourselves to have conversations of like he was saying, we become the creators of what we're watching. So I think if they give us that opportunity for us to look at it and say, you know, it's not what we want. I think it is what we want. I think we need to do our best with what we got, and then when we get to a position that we can do what we really want to do, you know. But to look at it, look down on it, I feel like it's not right.
You agree with that, Chuck?
To some extent, you know, obviously we want to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. But, you know, when Johnny Blaze became Michael B. Jordan, I wasn't happy about that. I gotta be real. I wasn't pleased with that. I think it was a very, the complete easiest way out to promote diversity. It's out of line with the comics, so far out of line. It wasn't like Jessica Alba being Sue Storm, which wasn't really right either, but at least it was like a little sidestep. You know what I mean? So I do think that we have to stop being lazy. Not only the movie houses, but us as well. We have to stop being lazy, and we have to continue to piggyback off these opportunities and give them genuine stories.
Right.
If you look at what they've done with Luke Cage, you know, and this is sort of off the last question, but when you see this Netflix series, you're gonna see there's no way. I mean, you would have to be if you were not black, you would have to be completely immersed in our culture to be able to write in this way, because there's so many subtle nuances. There's the writing, everything from hip hop to just Harlem to being black. It's so subtle, and there are little things that you just can't simply write.
Right. So sometimes, and I've heard kind of two sides of the paradigm there. Sometimes we like it when they remix a character and make the character black or Latino or gay or Asian. But I know we have a real problem when they take a formerly minority character and tweak that to make that character white. Tilda Swinton at Doctor Strange, right, as the ancient one, the white woman playing that. Then you got Scarlett Johansson, Ghost in the Shell, playing a traditionally Asian character. However, there's a difference there between the way Asian Americans look at it and the way Asians look at it. And as someone that has already, or we all have so astutely pointed out already, Hollywood's not making these movies to make the best depiction of it. They're making it to make money, right? And, you know, Asian Americans are Asians are oftentimes looking at these characters like Scarlett Johansson, and they're saying, oh, that gives us credibility, that like we are westernized, we've arrived. Is it enough? Do we take a step back for a second to say, hey, make these characters that are traditionally minorities, make them white to make money, and then we'll fix the problem later? Jamie?
I think, you know, whitewashing has just been there forever. It's just, I mean, it goes back to those biblical movies that we watched as kids. You know, none of those stories are accurate. So it's unfortunate that here in 2016, we are seeing this time and time again with the Iron Fist story. That in particularly, it's interesting. Last night we had a meetup, and Keith Chow of Nerds of Color. He was the co-host, and he's had this huge campaign on social media to have Danny Rand be cast as an Asian American, which makes sense because by having him as a white character, even though we know Danny Rand in canon is white, there's a lot of heavy cultural appropriation in those comics. And going back to what you said, some of these comics are from 30, 40, 50 years ago. Those comics were written by white guys. So, we live in a time now where we're more conscious and culturally aware of these things, like appropriation, like whitewashing, and we should try to campaign for characters that are, diverse and reflect the world that we live in. So it's very unfortunate because I notice whitewashing happens a lot more in the Asian community than other communities of color. And even in anime, it's just ridiculous. Death Note, they're whitewashing that, and so it's a very unfortunate thing to see. But we have to just continue to hold people's feet to the fire, make campaigns on social media. If you don't plan on watching it, don't watch it. They're going to keep making it as long as we go out there and pay money and support it. So that's the only way to kind of be able to bring that down and stop that from happening.
It's funny, like with Iron Fist or Black Panther or Luke Cage or Cyborg, some of these characters that were created so long ago. I was arguing with someone from the Kashmir staff about this, or I should say debating about it, about like Black Panther and Storm, like had this mystical African magic that they tapped into, and Luke Cage was an ex-convict that did time, and you know what I mean. So those are like kind of fetishized, ended up the inherently in the origin of those characters, and when the character before was on paper, but when it was in someone's mind. The challenge is, how can we create our own universes, right? And those universes being inherently who we are as minorities. And instead of waiting for top entertainment companies to include and represent us, how can we create these worlds that become billion-dollar forever franchises on our own? Michelle Rodriguez ran into a little bit of controversy earlier this year when she said it's not about taking Catwoman or Superman or Green Lantern or whatever these characters are trying to make them fit into whatever cultural background you are. I think that people should stop being lazy and that people should make an effort in Hollywood to develop their own mythology. Eric, is that even realistic?
I mean, I guess it depends on the person. When I go to a Marvel movie, I don't go to it to look for a true representation of how I see the world. I go to see what, I don't know, superheroes blow up shit. That's why I go. So there's so many things that I find offensive about blockbuster movies where you're like, oh my God, that was such bad writing, or oh my God, that's not how that person would do that. That to critique them on being methodically diverse, I mean, for me, I'm like, yeah, that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna do that and they're gonna make money. So I look for stories that resonate with me. I don't look to blockbusters or to Marvel for. I look for smaller stories, things that are more independent. Those are the things that have stories that resonate with me a little bit more. I mean, so I think she's correct. I think if you want it, you gotta make it. That if you're not seeing what you want there, and don't expect money makers to do what is going to make you feel good.
Okay. Well, Murs, you have your hand at trying to write your own comic book. Not trying, actually writing your own comic book, developing your own mythology, developing your own universe. Sometimes is it as easy as just giving it all you got and giving it an old college try and everything's gonna work out?
Yeah, I think you just do what you do. Right? I wrote a comic book about an Asian woman who sells T-shirts for a rock band.
Why could you do that as a black man? Shouldn't you left that for an Asian woman to write that comic?
Yeah, I don't know about any of that. Because if we would have wait for a black man to write Michonne, we'd all be sadly disappointed right now, And I think it's just a generational thing. We have to be patient, and instead of, I'm not going to protest a comic book movie when people are dying. And it's like there's a lot more work to be done on us as human beings for us to be criticizing the art for not being diverse. The more we integrate as human beings, someone like Robert Kirkman is going to write that naturally. It should just come naturally, not because he feels forced or boycotted or criticized. Like, if he wants to write a black character with a fucking katana, then thank you. If you don't, that's fine too, I really enjoy, I enjoy all the characters of The Walking Dead, and I think that if we wait and do real work in real life, the art will reflect that. But I think there's a lot of work to be done, and real change has rarely come from art. You know what I mean? Like, I think real change comes from real people doing real things and talking to each other and loving each other, and then we can worry about the comic books later. I read comic books to escape real life. I'm not looking for I have enough. We all have quite enough reality to deal with. So I'm cool with whatever you want to create. I don't want to infringe on anyone's freedom. And if I don't like it, I don't have to buy it.
Right.
I think this is it. You know.
Right.
I also think like if we get an opportunity as artists, if somebody gives me an opportunity and you gotta go for it. You gotta do your best, and we have to support each other. We can't look at everything. So sometimes I feel negatively. Like first we don't have any representation. Then they give us the representation, but it's not what we want. Well, we need to be responsible and say, look, if they give me a chance here, I'm gonna put my heart and my soul into it, and I'm gonna deliver this message of unity and whatever it is that you want to come across. You can't complain about an opportunity that you get. Black Panther, I think, I look at that to me and it inspires me. I'm sorry, I'm not very versed in the comic book world. I joined that late. But I just see and I look and I see, wow, that's incredible. You know, as a Latino growing up, you know, my family left South America and I get here, I'm born here, but our culture is gone. I don't really know who I am, what I am, and what I'm looking up to, and no representation of anybody who looks like me. So I look up and I see Malcolm X, I see Martin Luther King, I see Tupac Shakur, and I want to be like that. I want to unify my people like that. And so when I see how far it's come to where Obama's a black president, that gives me motivation and inspiration as a Latino. Wow, look what they did. We can do it too. You know, and then I see Black Panther, and the fucking story might not be exactly the same and all kind of extra shit, but who gives a fuck? Look, let's appreciate the chance we fucking got. Look at that. Right. Wow, and be proud and support each other. And I think the moment we start looking at it like that, that's when we're able to start making our own decisions. The more we talk about how fucked up it is every time we get a chance, why don't we, when we get a chance, make the best with what we got until we get to a point where we can do what we want when there's no other option but to let us in.
I feel like I'm a nerd first, you know?
And to me, that when I watch Avengers and I watch all that stuff, that to me is fucking real life. You can't tell me that shit is not real. I look at and it sounds crazy, and I might be need to go to a psychologist now, but shit, but it's crazy until it's not. And I look at these characters and I say, wow, we're capable of that. We're capable of fucking flying. We're capable of communicating telepathically. We're capable of all this shit. I gotta figure out how inside me, how do I better myself to where I can reach those levels, you know, and get to that point where we are fucking superheroes. And we do need to look at, like we were talking about earlier, Tupac is a fucking superhero, and Biggie is a superhero, and at the same time, black and brown is the same thing. We get treated the same way, and we need to support each other regardless. We got to take care of our own first, and then we'll be able to grow from the inside out.
I love that. Hashtag, we're gonna name this panel next year. We are fucking superheroes.
You know what? I wanted to say something real quick. We were in line getting coffee, right? And I was talking to this, white woman. I don't want to call her a white woman, but she was white. So, and she was like, she's like, oh my God, my son, he really likes Black Panther. And I was like, yeah, sure, But so I was getting my coffee, and then I turned around, and then there's this little kid, and he was so hyped. And I was like, it works both ways. It's not just little black kids looking up to Black Panther. It's like, it really shows other people as well, that other races, ethnicities, backgrounds, even sexual orientations can be heroic too, not just Superman, Batman, and Captain America.
Right.
And I think that's extremely important, that we note that it's not just, and that's why the box with Black Panther, I was cool that it wasn't a black kid on it. Because I think people need to see us that way too.
I think it's interesting to talk about who we're looking up to as superheroes and who is looking up to us as superheroes. I grew up looking at rappers as superheroes. Miguel just said it. When I saw Straight Outta Compton, I said that's an origin story, right? And now Benny Boone's Tupac movie is coming. And then I'm like, okay, now we're gonna have a Snoop Dogg movie in that same universe? Are we gonna reboot the Biggie movie from a couple years ago and put it back into this universe? Are we, as fanboys and fangirls sometimes, and I think Miguel kind of tapped on it too, are we so like based on sci-fi or historical fantasy or these fantasy worlds that we're not seeing and properly putting on pedestals the heroes that really exist in our worlds and how we look at it? And don't get it fucked up. Like I like Straight Outta Compton, but it wasn't really what happened. It was a great movie. It didn't really happen like that. That's why they look like superheroes. Right. You know, Murs. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, man. I agree with Tupac, but I have the privilege of being friends with Biggie's son, and I don't think that he was a superhero. I don't think anyone that ever sold crack to anyone is a superhero. I don't care what you think. That shit had a real effect on my family. And I'm not gonna teach my son. I'm gonna teach him he's a great rapper, and he probably could have been a greater father if we all made better choices.
Right.
Tupac was different. He never celebrated selling drugs. You know, when he mentioned it, he mentioned selling drugs to his mother and his remorse and regret. He celebrated a lot of things that are negative and a lot of things that are positive. I think that's what made him human. And the fact that he's dead, it shows you that he's not superhuman. And that there's a problem with youth thinking that they are invincible and that they are super. Where I come from, they think that they are invincible. They get shot 5 times and they live, and that messes with your head. So I don't know per se. And I thought Straight Outta Compton would have shown me was that a bunch of guys got together and made some music about some shit they never did and made a lot of money and made a lot of people believe it. And it's cool. And they're great entertainers. But they're not revolutionaries. You know what I'm saying? Ice Cube never built a grocery store in the neighborhood. He made millions. He said he would. You know, I don't know. I just, but what I do is I continually support. I went to see Straight Outta Compton. I bought the DVD. I bought the Black Panther, everything. I'll continue to support people of color doing whatever. Robbie Ray as his ghostwriter, I think it's amazing. And if it's good, I'll continue to buy it. And even if it's not good, I continue to buy it. I think that's it. And then I share my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't saying that I'm not happy that they're there. But
This is keeping it extra real.
I buy everything.
Super real.
Everything black, brown, yellow, gay, because it needs help. We're the minority. We have to help each other. But it doesn't mean I can't be honest with you. And that's when we stop being real. And that's when shit stops being good.
But I think that's why hip hop has identified so heavily with Marvel. This is my opinion. Pardon me. My opinion, because you do see the density of the characters. You do see that Tony Stark is an alcoholic, right? So, like for example, like Run DMC, who really did seem like superheroes, but you realize that DMC had a real serious alcohol problem, and you learn that later on in life. And to me, that didn't make him any less of a superhero. In fact, it probably made him a little more human because he was able to overcome that and then, rise out of it triumphant. You know what I mean? But I agree with what Murs said. I mean, I think that I don't think we need to look at hip-hop artists as superheroes because most of them are not that, except Chuck D, who I do think
I don't think anybody's perfect, but I feel like in one way or another they've influenced us, they've taught us how to survive, they've showed us the harsh realities of what's going on in the streets. And the reason that we're even talking about it is because of all the work that they laid down, and they laid down their lives for what they believe in, and they're allowing us to have this conversation right now. I think that's, we can't ever overlook that. Nobody's perfect. I have a lot of imperfections, insecurities, and doubts, and all kind of things that I'm trying to work out. But because of, I can't say because of listening to Tupac's music or listening to certain kind of music, it got me through it. And it showed me, this is how you react in this situation. When somebody is trying to harm you, you got to defend yourself in this kind of way. You got to, I think in that sense, they've taught us a lot. They pushed the culture forward. The reason why there is a Black Panther is because of them, because of how popular they've made it. Right. They've made other cultures looking and say, man, that's pretty cool. How can I, we want to be like that. We want to be like you. You know, and I think they showed it to survive in the streets.
We'll get to the questions.
It's a spiritual thing. I think it's deeper than just acting a certain way, man. To survive, I think it's spiritual. When they look at people that come from those circumstances and say, man, could I survive if I was going through that? Could I actually make it through what they went through? You know, so
that's a perspective is a huge thing for someone outside of the culture looking in.
Right.
That's a great point. I think that does seem like because the way they tell the story. If I was a kid that grew up in the suburbs, I would think that Ice Cube was a superhero if he made it out of there. And for some of them to make it as far as they can, I think it does take some. That's why they're stars. That's why they're superstars. I just think in the superhero world, in DC's world, in Marvel's world, the superheroes don't kill. They don't do drugs. They don't, to be traditional superheroes, and maybe that's evolving as it changes. Because Rick Grimes is. I don't consider him a superhero, but he's a hero. But he's conflicted, and he does shit the group doesn't agree with. They vote him out, and they vote him back in. And should you kill somebody? Who's the real? What's homegirl's name that had to go off by herself because she killed a little girl with flowers? Carol, yeah, she a superhero because to me she's the one I want because she's gonna do what's necessary. And so like it's all perspective, like you're saying. I think it just it depends on the situation. Cause I'm ready. Whoever to do this with the stick, I'm ready for him to go. He got it.
Morgan?
Yeah, Morgan.
Hey, I like Morgan.
This world has evolved so much because I look around the room and I see one little guy. There's not a lot of kids in here, right? And fanboys and fangirls have become fan men and fan women. But when we talk about it, we all channel who we used to be, or we talk about it in relationship to Murs' kids or the kid that was standing in line with Chuck. Because of these depictions, which we are now starting to see, could it be that there is a young person right now that's 8, 9, 10 years old that will be the person that creates not a world, but a universe, not even a universe, a genre based on this? We've seen black exploitation before, right? Which was a genre of movies. It was bigger than any one universe. It was a genre because it was needed at that time, right? It was a time where African Americans didn't feel like they had voice in Hollywood, so we kind of went over here and created our own stuff, and it's arguable how that came out, but to me there were some superheroes there, like Shaft or Superfly.
Yeah.
Maybe not superheroes in Murs' definition, but to me they're superheroes. But are we ever going to see the Black George Lucas, the Latino George R.R. Martin, the Asian American Stan Lee? And where do those people come from? They're not going to come from Hollywood. We talked about it before. Hollywood loves being second or third. They're probably going to come from the comic book world, just like it was easy from Murs and Miguel at one point to pick up a pen and a pad and write some lyrics down, and now they're a rapper.
I will say this about Murs too. I think he's a superhero because he's doing something that hasn't been done either. I know when I came up and I started doing the music, maybe I didn't have the courage that Murs had to say, you know what, this isn't right. Kids and family making the right decisions, and the music the way he does his music, he's telling you the honest truth. He's evolved. He's the next generation of what they were doing. But I think it was necessary for him to come out of, for Murs to be able to do what he's doing. And now the kids are looking and saying, oh, that is cool. You don't have to be like that. I want to go to school. I want to be educated. It's not keeping it real to go and get a job and to try to do your best and take it to the next level and get a degree. That shit wasn't cool back then. When I was coming up, it was like ride or die. Like that's the only way that you're gonna survive. That's the only way you're gonna make it in the music business. And I didn't have the courage to say, or maybe I didn't have the consciousness to look and say, you know what, this isn't right. This isn't the way it should be. And that's kind of why I stopped doing music, because I was pointing out all the negative stuff about the street, and all these people are following me looking for the next move, and I didn't fucking have the answer to what it is they need to do. I can't tell you to stop doing that if I don't have a way to feed you or show you what to do. So acting to me was the next step.
Right.
But Murs figured out how to do it in the music.
Absolutely.
So he's a fucking superhero.
I think that that leads right into my next question.
We don't have much time. I just
Wait,
want
I just want to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
I think that
I've been watching a lot of Luke Cage.
I think it's going to be possible because there are kids now who are fearless. They're smarter. Look, my 12-year-old daughter is smarter than I was at 21, and I think that they're going to come out of this, and they're so much they're business minded already. A lot of them, and to answer your question, I totally think that someone out there will do that will create and will hold on to the ownership and be able to boss up in a way that will
If you could track into the future, does that person come from the world of comics? Do they come from the world of music and hip hop?
No, I don't think it was from hip hop. I absolutely don't think. I think it was from tech. It comes from tech, and it comes from.
But I'm talking about someone
necessity.
that's creating these fanboy universes. I
I
guess.
think like what we saw this year with World of Warcraft, even though it wasn't done to everyone's expectations financially, like Blizzard is the next Disney, whether you know it or not. To me, it's coming from video games because they have a whole lore. They're intelligent. It comes out fast. Overwatch is the most important and biggest thing that's happened in entertainment in years.
I could see that. Yeah.
Because they said we're not going to do cutaway scenes in the video game. If you want to know about this video game, you have to watch a YouTube video or read the comic book to know what's going on in the video game. But if you just want to play, you can. But some way we're going to get you, and then when we do the Overwatch movie, it's huge, and it can stand alone, or you can play the video game.
But now we got another problem, right? Because there's not a lot of minorities, especially blacks and Latinos, in that world.
Well, there are. They're just horrible stereotypes. The black dude is literally a boombox.
You mean the depictions or the creators?
What?
I'm not talking about the depictions. I'm talking about the creators.
In Overwatch? In Blizzard?
The people that are the coders and work at.
Yeah, like as
Yeah, but who cares what the coder is if he's not designing the character? Like, we're talking about writers. We're talking about creators. These sorts of stories, these sorts of characters, those people. Everyone else, that's what they're going to fall into, is cliches, stereotypes, things that create diversity. I mean, the characters in Overwatch, I play a lot of Overwatch. I like it. It's a good game. But the first thing was I was like, damn, whoever created these characters.
Lucio's corny. Like,
Oh, yeah, he is a boombox.
yeah, it's like, but I think as people like his daughter come in and become developers, and
Sure.
like I think the next Marvel is not per se Blizzard. I think Blizzard is Disney, and they're gonna do corny stuff like Disney used to do with stereotypical characters. But there's gonna be a more culturally evolved video game company. And I think it could be EA, because I think they deal with a lot of people of color thanks to their sports thing,
Right.
So they have people of color all the time, and so they're not going to come up with something corny. But then I don't want it to be Rockstar, because I don't want the only depiction to be GTA 5. That really bothers me. Do I want to be a boombox or a gangbanger? I just want to.
Jamie, where do you see that next content creator coming from? The next one that's going to develop these universes, these worlds, these genres?
I think, well, they're already out there. It's just you got to find them and support them, right? There's organizations like Black Girls Code filled with black women that are making video games, that are creating phone apps, blackgamers.com. There's websites like mine and podcasts that feature comic book creators. Listen to episodes of my podcast. You can hear all of these interviews by people that are making their own comics, whether it's in webcomic form, or they're just doing their own trades, or they own their own comic book companies. There's someone in the room here that has their own comic book company. So I think that it's important that we just find these folks and support them when you hear about them. And if you do have a platform where you can amplify them, then use that, because it's not like they don't exist. It's just they're not being supported.
I appreciate everybody coming out. Unfortunately, they only gave us an hour. So the other point I'd like to make is I appreciate everybody, including the panelists, for coming way over to this hall. It's funny because I don't know why they have us way over here. It's kind of what we're talking about today. So please let Comic-Con know that they should have us in the mix with everybody else. But the conversation is not going to stop. It can keep going on through social media. # we are all heroes. Also like to give a shout out to Cashmere Agency, the team here that helped put this together, as well as Aaron Magruder, the creator of the Boondocks and Black Jesus, who helped think through this stuff. So give yourselves a round of applause. Thanks so much for coming out, guys.